Welcome to ASE Spotlights. For our first ever Spotlights video, we're welcoming you to Archaeology South East's Sussex office, located in Portslade near Brighton. Today we'll be showing you around our workspace and talking to archaeologists about their roles. You might notice it's a little quiet around our offices today, and that's because many of our office-based colleagues are working from home. Around the office, we have social distancing measures and one-way systems in place, and where that's not enforceable, we wear face coverings. We also have most of our field archaeologists out on site working on projects at the moment. Someone who knows all about that is project manager John Sygrave.
Hello, my name's John Sygrave. I'm a fieldwork project manager, so that means that I cost, program, help design and run fieldwork projects, so excavations, evaluations, watching briefs, all of that kind of thing.
When archaeological material comes in from site, its first stop is the processing room, and our finds processing supervisor, Steve Patton.
Hi, my name's Steve. I'm the new finds processing supervisor. I'm also one of the pottery specialists, and I'm doing the fired clay specialism. As the material comes in, I enter it into the database, cleaning the material as you can see now. Then we quantify it. It gets cleaned, numbered, bagged, and then sent out to various specialists to write their reports. And that gets integrated into the whole final sort of grey literature reports we produce.
Some of the most delicate finds from our sites go to archaeological conservator Alistair Threlfall.
Hello, my name is Alistair Threlfall. I'm an archaeological conservator, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to my workstation here at ASE. As an archaeological conservator, I work to stabilise and preserve objects, as well as to investigate how they were made, used and disposed of. Collaborating alongside field staff, find specialists, illustrators and other archaeological scientists, I contribute to understanding objects recovered during excavation. Conservation treatments are undertaken to preserve objects for storage, study and display. Archaeological conservation can involve remedial treatments such as investigative cleaning, controlled drying, consolidating and even reassembling of objects. But oftentimes, my time is spent focusing on preventive conservation, which manages the way objects are recovered at the time of excavation, handled during processing and, ultimately, how they are packaged, stored and displayed.
In addition to hand-collected finds, we also take bulk earth samples of certain contexts, especially those that could contain preserved organic material. These await processing in buckets out in the yard. From here, they're brought inside and tipped into a flotation tank by one of our environmental processing team. The sample then sits within a mesh that, with some gentle massaging, allows the mud to wash off any artefacts and stones within the sample. Flotation like this allows burnt plant material like seeds and charcoal to float to the surface and be collected in an even finer mesh. When all the mud has been washed away, these two meshes are rinsed and dried. The material from the large mesh is then sorted to pick out archaeological material, which will then later be distributed to the relevant specialists. The material from the smallest mesh, known as the flot, goes to our archaeobotanists for analysis.
Hello, I'm Elsa and I'm an archaeobotanist, and I'm working on seeds and fruits remains that are found on archaeological samples, and I'm having a look at flots from planet area. So we had a mass find of grains and also some weeds that can give us some insights about agrarian practices. So I can tell you at which time they were sown or how they were harvested, so that's pretty interesting.
Hi, I'm Lucy and I'm looking at charcoal today from one of our sites in Chichester. The reason we look at charcoal is to obtain some information about the woodland in the past, but also to look at things like woodland management, the types of fuel that are being used, and sometimes structures as well, but most often with charcoal we're looking at fuel.
Another type of archaeological material that comes from our sites is geoarchaeological samples.
My name is Matt Pope and I run Geoarchaeological services for Archaeology South East, which means that we deal with deep time in the archaeological record. Whereas most excavations tend to take place fairly close to the surface, within a metre of the ground level. We're routinely brought into sites to carry out investigations at depth to look at how landscape has changed and how environment has changed. One of the things that we routinely deal with are cores. These are mechanically extracted from the ground using specialist pieces of equipment, and they get us an intact sequence of different geological layers, each layer formed by a different process with a different record of environmental evidence, whether that be land snails or pollen or even fragments of plants. The exciting thing is, even within cores like this, we can sometimes find traces of early people. Sometimes the artefacts, sometimes evidence of burning, sometimes evidence of them making impacts on the landscape. So these are archives of landscape change, climate change, and human interaction with and reaction to changing environments.
Hi, I'm Alice Dowsett, and I'm a geoarchaeologist for Archaeology South East. As part of my job, I work in the lab studying coastal or riverine deposits under the microscope, and I look for paleo-environmental remains such as ostracods. Ostracods are bivalve crustaceans that are about 0.5 millimetre in size, and they live in a range of aquatic environments that can be broken down into freshwater, brackish and marine. Ostracods have a robust calcite shell that can remain in the sediment thousands of years after death. This is what makes them such a great paleoenvironmental proxy to study in archaeology. This way we can ask questions such as, where were past people obtaining fresh water from? Were their livelihoods impacted by flooding? And what types of natural resources would have been available to them? Returning to the finds, once clean, quantified and boxed, finds are put in our artefact store. Specialists use our bespoke database to see where finds are located and pick them up for analysis. Let's meet some of our find specialist team.
So here at Archaeology South East we have a large team of artefact specialists, including 4 of us that work with ceramics. We spend a lot of time excavating and processing and analysing pottery because it's one of the main finds that we have coming up on our excavations. One of the great things about pottery is it helps us date excavations by looking at what the pottery is made of and the shape of it. And we use microscopes and other techniques to help us analyse it.
Hi, my name's Ray. I do the ceramic building material at ASE. I've laid out some of my favourite bits and pieces just, to show you the best side of the job. Like this is some intact mosaic from a Roman villa. This one has got a really cute dog paw on it, cat's paw print. A lot of CBM is pretty homogeneous and it can be very difficult to date, but there are some things that are very clear to date. These are Delft tiles that were imported around the late 16th century. These are Westminster tiles, which are medieval tiles from the 1200s and 1300s. One of the things which can be used for dating is the fabrics of the CBM. This brick, for example, you can see very clearly it's got these sort of calcareous streaks in the brick, which I can date. I know exactly when they started making these bricks. It was after the Great Fire in 1666. So I know if I've got this, then I've got a post-fire brick.
As well as CBM and pottery, we also have in-house specialists dealing with flint and registered finds. These can also help date contexts and a site, which is particularly useful for those specialists whose material is not intrinsically datable, like me. Hi, I'm Emily. I'm a zooarchaeologist at Archaeology South East. Zooarchaeology is the study of animal remains from archaeological sites. Zooarchaeologists identify animal bones to species and collect information from them about age at death, animal size and health, culinary traditions and deposition practices. So here we have our Zooarchaeology reference collection where we can compare our archaeological material to these known specimens. Today I'm looking at this horse spine which I laid out the other day, and I'm basically trying to record it and work out what caused these vertebrae to stick together like this. All of this bone underneath here, that's not normal. These should be separate bones. So I'm going to be doing a little bit of recording, a little bit of research, and try to work out what was wrong with this horse. Objects and archaeological features often require photographs or illustration in our reports. This is the work of the Drawing Office, who illustrate, photograph and edit our most beautiful finds, draw detailed site plans, and even reconstruct past landscapes and events from archaeological evidence. The whole post-excavation process is overseen by post-excavation managers.
My name's Dan Swift. I'm an archaeological post-excavation project manager, which means that I deal with everything when it comes off an excavation or a watching brief or an evaluation. That includes management of archaeological specialists dealing with finds and environmental remains, and dealing with archaeologists as they write their actual reports. I'm involved in editing those reports, client liaison and sending the reports, and dealing with curators and consultants, comments, etc. There is an in-house database known as ASE that deals with everything from archaeological finds, sites, finance, through to HR, just about everything that we deal with. And it's a relational database, so everything is based on site code or project number.
That's the great thing about ASE. It allows us to track archaeological projects and their components right up to completion. And that brings us nicely over to archiving.
Hi, I'm Nikki and I'm the archive officer here at Archaeology South East. My job comes right at the very end of the project, and I basically compile everything together. Drawings, finds, site paperwork and digital archives. Get it all ready up to the museum specification, and then liaise with the museums to deposit the stuff to their final place.
As well as our grey literature reports, we create lots of other research outputs.
Hi, I'm Louise Rayner and I'm one of the assistant directors here at Archaeology South East. I head up our post-excavation and research section, which means I spend most of my time working on the books, articles and other research output that we produce for our projects.
And in addition to these, we also have our blog, podcast and social media channels, where we regularly share news of exciting finds, excavations, new research and publications. Check out the links in the description for more information. Thanks to everyone who was interviewed for our office tour, and thanks to you for watching. We hope it gave you an insight into the workings of a commercial archaeological office. Look out for more of these archaeological insights in the rest of our Spotlight series, coming soon.